Hey everybody, welcome back to the Boy and the Beard. Sounds so funny saying it because we just did it. We had a mishap with audio, and so we're back. So we're back in the studio with Mayor Joe Devito, the town of Port Royal, season 2, episode number 3, and we're looking to get some insight into Joe Devito and his life before being mayor, what it was like growing up in Long Island, New York, and how life is different here in Port Royal. So Joe, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it. We've wanted to have you in for a while now. It just worked out. It's the perfect opportunity, so we appreciate you taking your time and coming in and sitting with us.
Thanks for inviting me.
So, how long have you been in the Beaufort Port Royal area?
So my wife and I, Dawn is my wife, we came here in 1986. We had visited twice. My brother-in-law actually had a company that was on Long Island, Lake Ronkonkoma, and had moved out to the Beaufort Industrial Park, one of the first businesses. Back then it was called Pirelli Jerome. It's still kind of there in some fashion, but it's changed. We had come down visiting and kind of really liked the area. I was sitting on the Long Island Expressway one day, driving home from a really long day, and said, what am I doing here?
Right.
And we decided to move down here. I could do what I did anywhere, which was a plumber.
Right.
Everybody needs to be able to flush a toilet and get drinking water,
Exactly
so I felt
right.
like I could do something down here.
Was that a culture shock for you to make that move physically, of the life being different?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, the plumbing was a business shock, culture shock. I focused on commercial.
Okay.
So I was a commercial plumber. Did a lot in New York City. My main things were hotels and grocery stores. The company I worked for had contracts with a number of the grocery chains and a number of the hotels, and I did a lot of that. So everything was, large metal style pipes and stuff. I found Beaufort, Port Royal, Beaufort County, and they had this, white stuff called PVC and this gray stuff called PEC. I was, what is this? How do you put it together?
Right.
So it was a complete cultural shock in that way.
Now, when you did that, did you start your own business, or did you initially look for someone to work with them?
No, I did. I looked for somebody to work for.
Yeah.
I was able to find a small plumber who had a contract to do some work in the Fripp Harbor area that needed somebody. He took me a little bit, showed me what this plastic stuff was.
Yeah.
Wasn't hard to figure out, figured it right out and that kind of stuff, and worked for him for a short period of time, and then I went to work for a local plumber here, the focus in the city of Beaufort, Port Royal area, who's no longer in business. His son still has the business,
nice.
but is no longer in business. Worked for him for about 18 months, and then I got a job with the city of Beaufort in the utilities department.
Okay. Oh, got it. And did that lead to your Beaufort Jasper Water Sewer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Authority
So
job?
when I was doing the plumbing, I was fine, but I wasn't enjoying it because it was, like I said, the plastic pipes and this, and I needed something a little more challenging. My mind is a very mechanical, creative mind, and I needed something. And my father-in-law, actually, who had now retired to this area, also pointed out a job opening in the newspaper, which was for the utility department, the water department. And you talk about families, and sometimes the daughters like to follow in their father's footsteps when they find their husbands.
Right.
My father-in-law worked for the Long Island Water Co. for his entire career. So I don't know if he was steering me to something that he had done to protect his daughter. I don't know. Thank you very much, Fred.
Yeah.
I ended up with a full career there.
That's excellent.
And did 30 years with the Water Authority.
Wow.
Because the city of Beaufort and Beaufort Jasper merged.
Yeah.
We had a vote, brought us together, so it's one career that as it grew and grew and grew.
Got it. So that time spent here rolled into...
Absolutely. It's like I never changed a job.
Wow.
It was just really different person paid the check because we merged together. Into
That worked out well.
larger. Yeah, it did. It did.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
That way you didn't have to start essentially anew, your time reinvested. So what was the reason? Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry, I lost it. I want to get back to your plumbing beginning when you talked about the aviation.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you always want to be a plumber?
No, I wanted to do something with my hands. That was obviously, I was very mechanically inclined from a very, very young age.
Yeah.
If you had ever had the opportunity to sit down with my mom, she would tell you a number of stories about me taking apart the kitchen table with a knife, going to open the oven door and the handle falling off because I disassembled it. Taking apart old-fashioned digital clocks, the ones that had the little flip cards. You walk in, see them on the floor. And she used to joke that I just would when they maybe didn't work later because I didn't get all the pieces back in the beginning.
Always missing a screw here.
Always something,
Yeah.
you know. It was interesting how it went from 8:57 to directly to 9 o'clock. We don't happen to know what happened to the other two little seconds, the little minutes
Right.
in there. But I always used to say, oh, it just went to digital clock heaven. You know,
Yeah.
just moved on. But I've always been that way, and I had an opportunity in high school because I grew up on Bethpage, Long Island, which was the home of Grumman's Aeronautics.
Okay.
And I had an opportunity in high school to test into their aeronautics training program. And they had built a school, and they were basically building a workforce
Right.
and training their own workforce in high school to come directly to work for them. I tested into the program. I tested into the power plant side. I graduated high school with a power plant mechanics license. Was planning on going to work for Grumman's. Grumman's announced that they're moving to Texas. So I never actually worked for the aeronautics side. I did a short stint with Grumman's. Most people don't remember they made buses for a while.
Really?
And that was a disaster, and they were all recalled and had to be fixed.
Oh,
and
wow.
I had a contract job to work on buses for a while. with
Yeah.
them. But that was the only thing that I ever worked for Grumman's, where Grumman's signed a check for me for a while. It was
Wow.
about a year and a half. And when that ended, I was looking for a job, and there was a local plumber. Somehow or other, I knew him, and I interviewed and fell in love with the industry.
Really?
And basically never left it
Right.
in one fashion or another. Even what I'm doing now is still
Right.
related to water in some way.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, does that kind of reaffirm your belief in when one door closes, another one opens, or, that whole crossroads scenario?
Yeah, you know, it does. Options are always available in what you choose to do with the option, how you look at it. What is it going to be? Is it something that's going to be productive and bring you to where you want to be, and the decision you have to make? So you have to be willing to look at, all aspects of those
Right.
options and where you go forward.
Right.
with it.
No regrets?
No, no, because like for me, you look back and you say, should I have done it different? Would I have done it different? All this kind of stuff. But any change in your past would not get you to where you are now.
Exactly right.
And I have a beautiful wife, 2 sons, daughter-in-law, mayor of a town.
Yeah.
I feel like I wouldn't want any of that to be different. I live in a beautiful place.
Right.
I wouldn't want any of that to be different. So, are there little things? Maybe, but nothing that would have drastically changed where I am today.
Right, exactly. When I was younger, I used to read those quest books that choose A, choose B, choose C, whatever route you wanted to be, and and it's those decisions in life are the tough ones, but you got to make that decision knowing that you're not going to have any regret that you should have done this or would have done that. I mean, life as a whole is kind of that whole scenario.
Yeah.
From it's a job, should you leave this job or make another career path? I left a career of 23 years at 40. That's, which 40 isn't old.
No.
But you could have 3 careers in your whole lifetime. Obviously, we're going to talk about your whole boards and commissions and those tenures here in a minute. But 23 years in the restaurant business, and I was a supervisor. I had up to 14 locations in the area, this whole southeast area. But I just aligned myself with the wrong franchisee. Not so much a corporation. I love Sonic Drive-In as a whole and their brand and their standards and all that. I just aligned with the wrong franchisee. And I had to make a decision at 40, leave that, and then I went from making almost 3 figures down to making barely nothing, literally. Working with my buddy at the sign shop, he taught me how to do the sign shop stuff as SK was being built. So we started SK. I did this as supplemental just to make sure. Had an opportunity to buy the sign shop in 16, so we bought it in 2016, and then SK was 2 years old at that time, and then they both just kind of grew together.
Yeah.
So that's how we became who we are and where we're at today.
Yeah, I mean, you think about me, I basically had 2 jobs
Yeah.
for most of my life. I was a plumber.
Yeah.
I was with 2 plumbing outfits in New York for a very, very long time. Left one, and he always, even today, I've spoken to him.
Really?
Never want to come back.
Yeah.
At this point, no,
Yeah.
I'm not going back. But, and then I worked for the city of Beaufort, when it's ended up being Beaufort Jasper Water and Sewer Authority for 30 years.
Yeah.
And when I thought about retiring, I was like, I don't know who else Joe is,
Right.
in some fashions, because I was a little bit of the water
course.
authority. But it was the right time for me, and
Yeah.
there was some opportunity, some things that I
Yeah.
needed another step in life.
How old are you?
I'm 60.
Okay.
Okay. I turned 60 this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How long have you shaved your head?
I, I shave my head, but I don't have to shave my head. There is not much there.
Now, was that when was that decision made? That's a
Well,
tough decision.
I started, honestly, started losing my hair when I was 18 years old.
Okay.
It was the first time that I actively remember telling my mom
Yeah.
back then that I'm losing my hair, and she said I was crazy.
Of course.
If you ever have an opportunity to see some older pictures of me when I was younger,
Yeah.
I have a very full head of hair, to the point of full curls, could do it in an afro, did it in New York at points
Yeah.
and times, full,
course.
nice big head of hair,
Yeah.
could do it in many different ways, but it started falling out when I was 18. By the time I was 30, I was bald.
Really?
I don't remember that when I actually just walked in and said, take the last of it off.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd have to look at some pictures. I had a full beard and a little ribbon around the back.
Okay.
And one day I think it was on a Christmas vacation, I just walked into the bathroom and shaved it off and
Yeah.
walked out.
It's a tough decision, especially it was for me. I mean, it's like your hair's a security blanket. Kind of why I wear a hat 90% of the time, except for when I'm in council chambers.
And interesting, I've never worn a hat. Now, you
Really?
see me in them now, you see
Yeah.
the hats
Yeah,
I
yeah, the
wear.
flat cap every now and again,
I wear that now because 12 years ago I had to have a couple spots removed from my head, some gantry spots removed.
Okay.
And I just, all day at work I wore, hard hats
Right.
outdoors, so I always had that on.
Yeah.
But I don't wear baseball caps. You
Right.
probably very rarely will ever see me in a baseball
Yeah.
cap. I've never been a hat guy.
Yeah.
And I wear them now out of necessity. So that's it.
When I was young, I had a full head of hair, mullet. I had long hair. It still grows thick here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the crown and then right here it's real thinning. So, my wife convinced me just to go ahead and shave it.
Yeah,
And, now I got the aggravation of having to shave a couple times a week, which I hate shaving, obviously.
33% of men are going to have to face this
Oh, no,
very
no.
decision at
Is
some
it that?
point.
Is that the number? I never thought about.
One out of third.
One
out of three is male
yeah,
pattern
33%. I
involvement.
never thought about it that way.
The severity varies, obviously.
Yeah, mine was pretty severe.
Yeah.
My boys keep looking at me and like, well, I don't know.
How is their head of hair?
Both full,
Full.
both full heads
Yeah.
of hair, no issues.
it wasn't a genetic
My dad had hair. My mom's father, they
Everybody?
both died. My dad and my grandfather died fairly young.
Yeah.
So we don't know
Right.
where they would have been, but they when they passed, they both had
Yeah.
a head of hair. So I don't know.
So let's talk real quick about the boards and commissions, or just some of the boards that you've been on. So you said in our previous conversation, you had mentioned that you had kind of extended you overspent your, not so overspent your welcome, but you maxed out that time.
Yes. So I had the opportunity. My first board or commission outside of my employment.
Right.
I had some things there, but civic-wise, what I'll call community-wise, was the Town of Port Royal Supervisors Planning Team, which no longer exists.
Right.
That morphed into a planning commission, which then morphed into the Joint Planning Commission, which then morphed into the Metropolitan Planning Commission. I have sat on all of them.
Wow.
Okay, but and I found it rewarding. I found it very rewarding to be able to help out the community in some ways and bring things that I have learned and experienced through job and exposures and places right back here. When I retired from the Water Authority after 30 years, and I started the second, careers in the private sector, I termed out. I mean, there's limits to how long you can
Right.
be on boards and commissions. We as council sometimes play with those limits. Mine was played with a little bit there. So it says, 3 years, 3 terms, or until you're replaced.
Got it.
So if they never replace you, then you
Right.
can kind of keep going. But I had termed out, and I had to get off the Metropolitan Planning Commission after 20 years. I was part of the South Carolina 811, which is the call before you dig,
Got it.
which is a state level commission, and I did that one for 18 years and was president of that for 9 years. And County Transportation Tax Committee, just one after the other local,
Yeah.
but everything kind of reached its end, and I was down to nothing, and then the question is, what do I do next?
Right.
Because I realized that I missed public service. The Water Authority was in my mind, is a public service job.
Of course.
Okay, it's 2 communities, municipalities, every person, and the commissions help serve that need of wanting to help the public. And my job is very rewarding dealing with utilities all over the nation, but not here locally.
Right.
How do I bring it back locally? So the question came up: do I run for office?
Yeah.
And then it was like, what office? And to me, there was only one decision, and that was Port Royal.
Right, for sure. Because you have a home here
Mm-hmm.
that you've had. You said since it's your first home you've bought in Port Royal.
Correct. We got to the area in '86. We started looking around for houses. We talked to the real estate agent, told him what we wanted, and we wanted three things. We didn't want a slab home, had to have a garage, and it must be in a municipality.
Okay.
I got one. I got in a municipality, and it was the town of Port Royal. We ended up, we found a beautiful home in Port Royal, fairly new. It was only about 3.5, 4 years old.
Right.
But it was a slab home, and it had no garage.
Of course.
Built a garage in the first year.
Excellent.
So we got the garage,
Yeah.
we got the municipality, and the home is still the home that we live in, and I've raised two boys in.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I have no desire to leave it in any way.
What's the percentage of value that the home has increased?
That's interesting because I never look at things
Right.
that way.
Yeah.
I don't. It's got to be. It's enormous. I mean, you
Oh,
think
it has
about
to
it.
be, yeah.
1986 to now, what houses? I've never had the house appraised or anything like that. I don't do things. Sometimes people say, do you really want to do that? It's not going to increase the value of your house, or
Right.
you're overdoing your house for the area. You
Right.
hear those things. Just I live, and none of those ever come into my mind. This is what would make my family
Yeah.
comfortable.
Yeah.
This will make us happy. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I'm not building this home or developing this home as a plan to
an
sell it to make
investment.
money.
Yeah.
This is our home.
Right.
I have no desire to go anywhere else, and we're just going to be right here. So I don't
Yeah.
look at it in that way.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's a good. That way, it's your forever home since you initially purchased, so it wasn't a starter home per se.
Correct.
How old were you when you moved to the area?
Well, I'm 60 now.
Okay.
So I
86.
was 26, 27, somewhere
Yeah.
in that.
Okay.
Yeah. When we
lots-
moved to the area.
I'm sure a lot's changed. I moved here in '97, and a lot's changed since then. I can imagine since the mid '80s, what's changed.
It was interesting when we moved here.
Yeah.
It was a couple of traffic lights.
Yeah.
Kmart,
Yeah.
Roses, Sky City. Those are the three stores. None exist.
Yeah.
If you think about it in that
Yeah,
way.
yeah, not at all.
Was Roses? No, Roses is the
No,
different
that's a little
roses.
small. It's a different one, yeah.
Smaller roses, but
Yeah.
different roses. And Sky City. But
Was the drive-in theater where it's at now, or was it in town? I'd read it was in town.
no, the drive-in theater was where it is now,
Okay.
and there were actually two other drive-ins.
That's what it is. Okay.
Yes, there were two. There was one in Beaufort, and there was one in Port Royal.
Yeah.
So if you look at the Piggly Wiggly Shopping Center,
That's exactly
across
where it
the
was at.
street is the
Yep.
Kappa building.
Yep.
That round front.
Yep.
That was the projection. That was the
Really?
stand, and the theater was over. This is all before Remote Roads
Of
changed
course,
and
of
this, but
course.
that's the original structure from what was a drive-in movie theater here. in Port
Okay,
Royal.
and I know that became a billiards place as
It
well.
was a billiard. Right,
That was
that
more
billiards
recent.
place was here when
Yeah.
I
Okay.
remember the billiards place.
Yeah.
Agave Restaurant was Joe's Spaghetti House.
Really?
Yeah. So.
So I knew that, yeah, before Agave was another restaurant. I'm glad he painted his building a new color. It was
What color was it before?
almost like this.
Yeah, it
carpet.
was-
Mine.
Yes.
Yeah. But you're a big fan of. So what's your history with orange?
What's my history with orange? Interesting. It has nothing to do with any sports or colleges.
Okay.
So, because obviously people want to slap tiger paws on everything
Right,
that
right,
come
for
around
sure.
with orange. I respect Clemson's great.
Yeah.
Orange is my favorite color.
Got it.
It has been. It's not something that's changed in any
Right.
way. I have always just liked the color.
Yeah.
So I own an orange car. I own an orange bicycle.
Yeah.
Plenty of orange.
Well, I mean,
Clothing and
obviously, I
shirts.
didn't know you prior to your running for mayor and becoming mayor. I think maybe we crossed paths at city at some point in one of the work sessions, but the orange campaign signs, shirts, and all that stood out.
Yeah,
So I think it's a great color. It's not a soft muted orange.
No,
It's,
no,
it's
no, no, no.
Shag carpet orange.
No,
it's
yeah,
a bright.
it's a brighter orange.
Yeah.
I would call it it's a brighter than burnt, but in the burnt family.
Yeah.
It's not that super yellowish. It's more of in the burnt family
Yeah.
is my favorite side of it.
Okay.
But it has been, and what's good is in the last 10 years, orange has come back.
Oh, yeah,
There were
for
many years that if you put orange on, it was definitely college or sports related
Right,
in
for
some
sure.
fashion.
Right.
But now it's a pretty popular color.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's good for you.
it came around.
Yeah.
It came around.
Where did you and your wife meet, or how did y'all meet?
Oh, wow. So you really want to go there? So,
Yeah.
60.
Okay.
So I graduated high school, 79, 80.
Yep.
So we are talking disco era.
Excellent.
So my wife and I met at a discotheque in Long Island.
Not Studio 64.
Not Studio 64. It was called Poor Peter's.
Okay.
Later turned into a place called Diamonds, and no longer exists, obviously.
Yeah.
But we did meet in a disco. She lived in a neighboring town.
Okay.
It was 2 towns over. Long Island is, different than what we have here.
Yeah.
But she lived in a town called Levittown. She grew up there, and it's just this disco was in between both of our towns, and I don't know how either of us found it. I don't remember that scenario, but we met there.
And again, was that meeting, did that happen over a series of Friday, Saturday nights at the discotheque? You kind of seen each other, and it was like a small connection, and then
Correct.
you get the butterflies. I hope I see it
So the disco era, that whole time was very much people were loyal to a discotheque. I mean, you were loyal to a bar. I mean, think about it in that way. So it wasn't every Friday or Saturday night you went to the same place.
Yeah.
And you had your group of people that you went with, and those groups interacted with other groups.
Yeah.
This person happened to know that person. Dawn's group, my group were 2 different groups, but there was a commonality with somebody, and I don't remember who it was. I think it was the owner of the bar. I think it was Mike. Now that I think about it, I'm thinking back. And the 2 groups became closer and friends, and Dawn and I met, and it was it was a little bit of an unusual circumstance. There was just something that happened. I stepped in to help out some people, help her out in a scenario because I saw something I didn't like, and so then we kept talking, and the next thing you know, we started dating a little bit.
Sounds like a movie.
It does sound like a movie, and then it went, crash over the, we went off the cliff and crashed and didn't see each other for many months. That happens.
Love stories.
Right. The many months, we stopped seeing each other, and then we ran into each other again, and we joke about it that during that period, I grew my beard for the first time.
Okay.
It was a full beard, and I had hair back then, and it was a full beard, and I saw her again, and we started talking. I had moved out of the area and moved out on the island because of work and other things, so I wasn't going to that bar as often. It had also, I think if I remember correctly, it closed and reopened then as Diamonds, so it was closed for a while, and then we ran into each other. And she always jokes that she thought I looked better with the beard than I did without.
Yeah.
So we started dating again, and we ended up getting married, and we've been married since 1984, so a long time.
That's excellent. Do you still listen to disco?
I don't. I mean, obviously, I like the songs when they come on. It brings back memory,
but
childhood.
You don't throw an 8-track in, or
No, I don't have any more 8-tracks. I don't. I'm an absolutely classic rock style person. My favorite female singer is Stevie Nicks, Fleetwood Mac. Led Zeppelin is, to me, it's the only band that ever existed. In a lot of ways. But if there's a specific genre, like in this point of my life, it's singer-songwriters.
Okay.
I like there to be something in the music a little bit more. So I really like singer-songwriters. I kind of gravitate towards some of those.
Yeah, there's, like you said, there's definitely more meaning in it, and you can, when they perform that, you feel that. So you mentioned, Led Zeppelin. I did a stint, just as most youth did, except we talked briefly about this to Tony. I went through a Jimi Hendrix, Doors, Led Zeppelin phase growing up. Obviously, I grew up 72, I was born, so for me, I hit that probably 82, 84 in my life. But I love Led Zeppelin. I've got all their downloaded stuff on my phone, and every now and again, I'll get into that mood and listen to them, and it's just fantastic. Not so much of the Doors, Jimi Hendrix for sure. Really, really enjoy that music. So you said Southern rock or just classic rock?
Both, absolutely both.
Okay.
To me, the genre, people separate it, but to me, they're the same.
For
in
sure.
a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. My boys, it's Matt and Zach are my 2 boys. Matt being the oldest, Zach being the youngest. My oldest is the same genre. My youngest is completely different music that I have no ability to listen to. More of the modern stuff and that kind of stuff. And we talk about that, but then the opposite side of that, my younger son, Zach, loves movies, loves action, science fiction. I am
and that's where y'all connect.
Over the top, and we go to every Marvel's movie, we go to all the movies together, and then my older son, my relationship with him is in the building. He has hands like me.
Got it.
So we do that stuff.
So if you were to split yourself into 2, they took both those traits.
There's a little bit of traits from both of them. In both of them.
Does your wife Do they have anything that your wife's interested in that they're both interested in?
You know, my wife's and their relationship and what they're interested in is interesting because Matthew, my older son, is very creative in a lot of ways. And as much as I feel like I have a creative mind, I think my wife has even a better one. She never really developed it in a lot of ways till now. And she's doing some things now. She makes pocketbooks, believe it or not. She's something she decided to pick up a hobby.
Yeah.
And what she comes up with and what she does is just like, over the top, that creativity is always there.
Yeah.
What they really got from my wife is the loving nature.
Really?
I couldn't ask for a better person to,
to
love a family, be a family oriented. My wife and both my boys got that.
No, it's fantastic to have somebody like that because it helps keep you reminded of that's what's more important. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my wife helps me realize what's important, not what it was when she'd show me how hard I work doesn't prove my worth. That makes sense.
Absolutely.
So, but that's hard for me because I work. That's what I do.
That's what I do.
You know what I mean?
I understand that.
So,
I've always said that, behind every good, great man, whatever you wanted to say, is a better woman. There's no doubt
100%.
in my mind that I am who I am because of Dawn.
Yeah.
And her ability to allow me, first of all, to do the things that I want to do, and then second, support me and keep me grounded and moving forward in that aspect. So, yeah, I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't in a lot of ways.
I don't think
Dawn.
any great man could be.
No.
As much as they want to be egotistical and sexist, women are a big part of the world. And our lives, my life, everybody that we come in contact with, there's a smarter woman behind whatever man that is.
Absolutely.
Firm believer of that. You briefly touched on science fiction. So, favorite movie. Let's obviously science fiction is your genre.
Correct.
So within that genre, what's your favorite franchise?
Star Trek.
Star Trek. Okay.
Yep.
Now, is that Next Generation Star Trek? Is that with Captain Kirk? Or
Okay, so you got to remember how old I am.
Okay. So obviously Kirk and Shatner.
Right. So I WPIX Channel 11 Long Island every day.
Yeah.
Star Trek played from when I was a little kid. My mom tells me it was something that she was kind of required to turn on.
Yeah.
That I wanted to see it, and I've watched it and have never stopped watching Star Trek.
Right.
I mean, it's just a reality. For whatever reason, there's many reasons why I think Star Trek has a lot of good things. I mean, in a lot of ways, maybe we wouldn't have cell phones.
Right. Oh yeah.
If it wasn't for the communicator.
yep.
Especially not the flip phone.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Especially
Exactly.
not the flip phone.
Yeah, because there was some smart tech guy behind the scenes. Look at this. Hey, and since they shaped the future.
Yes.
Continue.
And so I like all of Star Trek. And is there one that I'm more favorite of? Of course. I mean, there always is, but ultimately it's Gene Roddenberry.
Okay.
If you think about who it was that brought it together, and if you ever do any chance to do any reading about him and see what he was all about. I mean,
I haven't, but
he wrote westerns.
Really?
Wagon Trail. He wrote westerns, and he decided that he wanted to bring that style of TV sitcom to space.
Wow.
And he took that to Star Trek.
Yeah.
And then you start understanding a little bit about where he was, but he was a science guy.
Right.
And that's how he brought in the science. And what I've always enjoyed about Star Trek is the science aspect of it, and the creativity and the no boundaries, and that's the piece that brings me. And obviously people always ask, so I'll get to it before you do. What about Star Wars? Because that's one of those things that obviously we grew up with both, and I've seen them all.
Yeah.
And I've watched them all, and Star Trek's my favorite. Star Wars is great.
Yeah.
And I describe the difference, and people say why, and I've learned that Star Trek's based on science. Star Wars is based on mythology.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They're both great.
Yeah.
But the science is more attractive to me,
Right.
and that's why I love it.
Star Wars is just like fiction in space more than science. They're not explaining anything.
Right. It's
There's
mythology.
no technical jumbo. It's just it's their religion of being a Jedi is the main focus on that. So it's the spirituality of it. And then Star Trek's the complete opposite, the machinery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why
So let's talk Star Trek. TV series. Who was your favorite character?
You know, because of the embeddedness of Kirk when I was younger,
Right.
it always stands out
Yeah.
as one of those. But the Captain Picard
Yeah.
and the way he was a leader is the reason that he becomes the person that I think was one of the best. It has to do with the way he was a leader. And there's a lot of, I don't say I emulate, but there were things that he did during the show that kind of hit home with me as I elevated my way up through a career.
Yeah.
And the way, you know, he would bring the team together and listen to everybody's input and then make the final decision if you're in charge. Never balked off on that decision, never said, sorry, it's your fault. You didn't
Right,
press the
right,
button.
exactly.
No, you didn't press the
Yeah.
button. Who didn't press the button?
Yeah.
You know, it always was, you know, the buck stopped here. And there was some things about that, you know, you don't maybe realize that they're resonating, but then they do resonate
Yeah,
with
of
you
course.
as stuff starts to happen. So I
Yeah.
was always kind of a big fan of collecting information. And that was something that I saw him do
Yeah.
a lot more than if you look back at Kirk.
Oh, yeah, no, of
Kirk
course, 'cause
was,
it
you
was
know,
more- yeah.
get the sword, let's get together, let's
Yeah.
run out, let's have a fight.
Right.
You know, it was two different ways of doing it. So, and obviously, because I was so young when Kirk was there, it's embedded. But
Yeah.
reality is, it's Picard.
Jean-Luc.
It's Jean-Luc.
So I'm guessing you absolutely love the 2010s Star Trek films and all their lens flares and just beauty and CGI and just nonsense. I'm guessing they got to be your favorite. Obviously, they surpass even.
You know, every movie, every one of the movies had their positive, and a lot of them had negatives. You know, in a lot of ways, there's some great stuff out there. When J.J. Abrams came
There's
back,
some good casting. I'll give them.
right, and when J.J. Abrams came in and decided to, you know, kind of revamp the whole Star Trek, I knew that he could do a great movie. You know, he could absolutely do a great movie. But I also was concerned that he would be a one and gone.
Yeah.
Because that's just who he is.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
he did it. He has other things to do. He's so creative and he's so good. at
Always
that.
moving on.
And the casting has gotten real good and the CG has gotten great. You know,
Yeah, CGI is crazy.
you know, and what they can do, you know, you wonder if they go all if you were to go back and remake any of the original episodes with today's
Oh, it'd be
technology.
ridiculous.
I mean, there were some amazing original episodes, and you know.
It's like what they
Practical
tried to do
effects.
with Star Wars in the early 2000s. They went back and did early 2000s CGI and all the original trilogy stuff. They could have waited like 17 more years and gone back and actually done some good work instead of being like, there's Play-Doh everywhere all of a sudden.
Have you watched the new one with Picard, where he's, I guess, on planet Earth after he's retired?
Yeah. So
How was that?
I watched the.
What's it called?
It's called Picard.
Okay.
So it's on Discovery
Yeah.
only, and I watched the first season.
Yeah.
It closed some loops. I don't want to give it away if anybody hasn't watched
Yeah.
it, but it closed some loops, some things that needed to be ended. It put some things to bed.
Okay.
It shows how fragile everybody and anyone can be.
Yeah.
And what needs to be done, and it's going to be interesting to see what second season looks like
Okay.
and whether they go on to a third. I mean,
How old is he now? He's in his 70s?
yeah, he's definitely showing his age. in
And
Picard.
he's a trained actor in the sense of Shakespearean.
Classically
and
trained.
classical.
Shakespearean actor.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't catch it and don't realize it. He was in the original Dune.
Really?
Yeah, he was in the original Dune. He was Gurney.
Okay.
In the original Dune, it was one of the first
Yeah.
kind of steps into that. But he is a Shakespearean. It is Sir Jean-Luc Picard.
It comes through, I believe, in his act. I mean, he's a phenomenal actor, and his voice is alone is.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's stunning.
His whole presence, his screen presence is like.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
Sir Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, yeah.
I love the commercials between him and
Who is it?
Luke Skywalker.
Mark Hamill.
Mark
Yeah.
Hamill. Yeah, I love those commercials.
Yeah, the DoorDash ones or whatever.
the DoorDash-
it is. Yeah,
the
he's all, tonight I'm
DoorDash
eating
commercials.
calamari with
Yeah.
butter sauce. I love those too. He was looking old in Logan. That was 2017.
Yeah, he was
Obviously, they hammed it up because
Yeah.
Professor X is old, but
Yeah.
I was like, ooh.
Yeah, he's
I mean, we all get old. We all start showing age.
We
and
all show our age.
I was talking to Van, and he said when I hit 50, the check engine light came on.
Never
know.
turned off.
Yeah, it never turned off. That's a harsh reality that we all have to face at some point.
Yeah.
So what was the one with the robot and he had the arms? Mr. Will Robinson.
Lost in Space.
Lost in Space. Did you watch that as a kid?
I did.
Yeah.
I watched. If it's a
if
sci-fi,
it's sci-fi, you watch
You know, and my wife joked because if it was a sci-fi and it came on and I started watching, I said I really liked it. She said,
Yeah.
"Well, it's doomed." Because every show that I ever liked, because sci-fi wasn't a big genre for
course.
many, many, many years,
Yeah.
and now it is. I mean,
Yeah.
now it's different.
Now it's-
And I think it's give a lot of props to Netflix.
Yeah.
Netflix
Oh, yeah.
allows the sci-fis to really be
Yeah.
more than what they were on TV. So if it was any kind of a sci-fi, I watched it.
Yeah.
Lost in Space was great. Will
Did you
Robinson.
catch the 82 The Thing around the time that came out? The 1982 The Thing with Kurt Russell?
Sure. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
I've seen all the things. There's been a few things.
The 50s.
But, yeah. That one's been around for a long time and been reworked a few times.
Mhm.
You know, Lost in Space is on its third now. You know, this is the original TV
Yeah.
series. There was the movie.
Yeah, with Joey. Oh, what's his name from Friends? And
Oh gosh, how come it's
his
amazing
name?
we're drawing blanks on people's names
Yeah.
right now.
Not Matt LeBlanc?
Matt
Yeah,
LeBlanc.
Matt LeBlanc,
Okay.
which I thought was a very,
Oh, that
very
was a
good
good
movie.
movie.
It was
I
a
liked
great
it.
movie, but
Yeah.
again, it was the one and done.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it never had the second, and now there's the new Netflix one, which has been extremely good. But they committed to 3 seasons, and they're ending it. So third
Really?
season's getting ready to come out,
I don't
and
think
it's
I've
done
seen
and
it.
it's over. They filmed it. It's getting ready to be released
Wow.
shortly, and they said they were only ever going to do 3 seasons
Really?
and let it go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's good from a creative standpoint because then you know. And
Then you can actually wrap it
the
up
character
without
arc,
getting
you got
canceled.
everything. You know your limitation.
Right.
So
Wrap
you
it.
can't peak in season 2, and then season 6, everything's screwed up.
Mm.
So.
So we talked. What about? So we know music. We talked a little bit about that. Talked your favorite movie. Now, growing up, what did your kids watch on TV? What was their
Well,
go-to?
my boys were both Star Wars, big
Okay.
Star Wars.
Got
Didn't
it.
like Star Trek. I mean, they
course not.
were definitely the Star Wars. I mean,
Yeah.
it was when all that was kind of
Yeah. How old are they?
The Thing.
30 and 27.
Okay.
So the middle trilogy
Yeah.
was theirs. It came out, and
Yeah.
Star Trek had pretty much been gone
Yeah.
for that whole period
Jar
of
Jar
time.
Binks and
So
all that
it was
crap.
all the Star Wars.
Yeah.
Twister, they loved that. That was one of my
a good movie.
good movie. One of my sons just
Yeah.
just watched it over and over.
Yeah.
So those were the kind of things
Okay.
that they watched and did. My older son was into musical, like I said, a little bit.
Yeah.
Tried to play guitar,
Okay.
bass a little bit, let it go. But they were never real video game kids. They didn't,
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't. We didn't do a lot of the video game
Yeah.
stuff. A lot of soccer. Played some ball. My older son loved to surf, so it was, beach to him was important.
Where'd they graduate from? High school?
Both Buford High.
Beaufort High.
Both Buford High.
My son, Beaufort High. My son, Battery Creek. My daughter, Beaufort High.
Yeah, no, both Buford High.
Yeah.
And they both still live. They live here in town.
Oh, do they?
My younger son lived in California for about 3 years.
Okay.
Trained under a chef out there. Was a chef, and now he's back here, and he's a chef over in Bluffton area,
Really?
inside of Sun City and Jameson's Charcoal
Okay.
Grove.
Tony's a cook in the sense he's a foodie.
Been cooking since I was 4.
Mhm.
Every time my mom taught me how to make something, she was just like, "You're set. You ever need a grilled cheese?
That's
Boom."
it.
Yep, literally. Which is great because I never had to go through that phase of learning to prepare food for myself. Like, as a young man, when you go out and realize you have to cook every single meal, I was already doing it.
That's it.
Yeah.
So let me look real quick. I had.
My roommates that I lived with were all like 25, 26. It was brutal watching them try to take care of themselves.
See, I like to cook. I am in no way a chef,
Mhm.
but I like to cook. I'm one of these people that just kind of opens the refrigerator, looks in there, and then starts
Put
grabbing
something
stuff.
together.
Yeah.
Are you on the
And-
grill a lot, or?
And then no, I don't. I can grill, but I'm definitely a saute pan kind of guy,
Got it,
and
yeah.
I like
What's
to
your
just-
go-to? So if someone says, "Joe, I need you to make dinner tonight," or what's your specialty?
Well, if you say specialty, it's breakfast food.
Okay.
I love cooking eggs.
Yeah.
I love cooking eggs in all different ways, and I love I do a lot with eggs. But it's really just sautéing something
Yeah.
up, and it becomes interesting because 18 years ago I gave up meat in
Yeah.
old fashion.
Okay.
So I don't eat chicken, I don't eat pork, I don't eat beef,
Huh.
but yet I cook for everybody, and
Right.
it doesn't bother me. And the whole issue of it, some people get crazy. You can't be on the same pan. You can't be on the same
Oh,
plate.
yeah.
I don't have any of that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just is what it is,
what it
and
is.
I make things a different way. Italian, obviously. I mean, I grew up in a very, very Italian family.
Right.
I know all the bases and what you need to do to make
Yeah.
something taste good. You know, people ask me to come to Port Royal and Beaufort area and say, "Where's a good Italian restaurant?" You know, I give my address.
Yeah, exactly
You know,
right.
because that's you know, that's always been where, you know, where the best Italian food was in
Yeah.
my mind, and the way the things.
What's
that
your
happen.
favorite Italian dish to eat?
So eggplant parmesan.
Really?
Without a doubt, it is
Parm.
traditionally always been my favorite. I like a lot of the different pastas, but you know, of course, any of the good ones are unhealthy. And,
course.
you know, fettuccine
So-
Alfredo is probably my favorite, but it's also known
Just
as heart
cream
attack.
and cheese
It's
and
right. It's
butter.
heart attack in a dish, and I've already had that heart attack.
So I was going to
dish,
ask you. So was that change in your diet X amount of years ago related to the a health scare?
No, believe it or not, you know, my health scare is a heart attack.
Okay.
I was young. I was 46, had a massive heart attack,
Wow.
helicopter ride, whole bit. My kids were young at that point in time, and I had already had the change in the diet because I had gotten heavy.
Okay.
My family's a little bit prone to being a little heavy. My dad was heavier, and he died very young of heart condition, and I realized that I was getting very heavy, and I was, you know, I needed to do something about that. So I started trying different things. One was to start exercising, and that's where I picked up the love of cycling, and I also wasn't sleeping very well, and this is the crazy story behind why I'm a vegetarian or pescatarian, because I do eat a little bit of fish. I didn't sleep well. For years I didn't sleep well. I had terrible insomnia, and I woke up every night with uncomfortable feelings. And I'm a data person, so I started kind of tracking things, and I came to the conclusion that it was what I ate, and then I came to the conclusion, well, I thought it was when I ate, then I thought it was what I ate. Came to the conclusion it was meat, and probably specifically beef, but I just chose to give it all up one day, and I gave it all up, and within a couple of weeks it solved my insomnia issue, and I've never gone back. I did try to introduce fish. I did because, you know, for some protein purposes, about 8 or 9 years into it, and now that's just it's the way I eat.
Wow.
So I lost a whole bunch of weight. I lost almost all the weight I wanted to, and cycling was the exercise that I did to do it, and then trying to eat healthy, and I'm well beyond the heart attack now, and we'll see if we can keep this positive thing
Yeah.
going.
Knock on wood.
Yep.
Red meat's it really is crazy how the red meat consumption in the United States compared to what it actually does to your inner workings.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love red meat too, and I've been thinking that like I really got to cut it back now while I'm young, because that's just going to be what do they say? A gram of prevention is worth an ounce of cure, or something like that. I'm trying to heed that now while I have a chance.
You're young enough, you know. You
Yeah,
can still do it.
yeah.
You can still do it.
Yeah.
I'll be 49 in October, and I don't know. I got to eat healthy. It's just because I'm small doesn't mean I'm healthy. My wife's always told me. Just because you're skinny doesn't mean you're healthy. And it's yeah.
That's my roommate exactly. He's
It's
a little twig, but
absolutely
all
a
he
true
eats is
statement.
pasta noodles, you know. So
Yeah.
you know that's not the picture of health.
No.
Yeah, not at all. Oh, you take a swig real quick. So,
Sorry.
how do you define success, and are you successful in your own eyes?
All right, so let's start with how do you define success. For me, it's always been whatever I'm leaving behind was better than what I found it. Is one of those things that kind of resonates with me, and it's why I look at things and what I need to do. I think that came from the industry, the plumbing industry, the utility industry, because most things are hidden until something goes wrong. Then you either dig it up out of the ground or open up a wall and find it. And somebody did something that they probably wouldn't be proud of if they had to go back and look at it again. So I always wanted to make sure that whatever it is, that what I'm doing is better than what I found it, or what I'm leaving behind I'll be proud of in the future. So the other thing, that do the right thing for the right reason. This is kind of something I've said to myself and to many people around me, to people I've worked with, you know, when they're trying to make a decision and struggling with it. Sometimes the hardest thing is to figure out what's the right reason first before you decide what you're going to do. So those are the things that kind of run around in my head as to why I want, how I think something is successful. Now, are you successful? Wow. I'm not done yet. I think that's one of the things you have to start with.
Yeah.
You know, was I successful at plumbing some building one day? Yeah, I was. Was I successful at doing certain things? Yes, there were times I was successful, there were times I wasn't. When I'm done and it's all over with, I hope people will think that I'm successful. I'm still striving to do better.
Right.
I don't know, there's more to be done. And that's probably why I chose to run for mayor, because I think that I have more to offer.
Right.
I have more to give. I have more, I think, ability to help leave behind something good. And when it's all said and done, we'll let others decide about success.
Right, for sure. That's a great way to put
Mm-hmm.
it. I like to ask that question just to get the answer, because everybody's
so
definition of success is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal at the end of this, however long this series runs, I may throw in those questions back to other people just to hear how eclectic that answer is based on the person and who they are and what they thought at that particular time.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things. I mean, you know, I built a car. I was successful.
Yeah.
You know, I love riding a bike. I've chose some goals. I've done some. I was successful at those goals.
Financial success, success in
You know,
relationships.
finance. You know, that isn't
So-
something I
so
even
many.
go to.
Mhm.
It doesn't. I pay the bills. I don't have anybody knocking at my door. I'm happy with that.
That's all you can ask for at the end of the day.
I'm happy with that.
I mean, and
That's not a
comes-
driver for me.
No. And I assume that with the statement you had made about the house, and you're not making those changes to increase the property value. It's more about an
It's like a
internal.
home, not an asset.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know, you don't build a classic car to make money also, so.
Yeah, some
Yes.
things are just
It's just, you'll never get out of it what you put into it,
Yeah.
but it's the love of putting it into it and doing it. It's the working, it's the satisfaction of doing it.
Right, for sure.
That's what makes you feel good.
So how long? What's your tenure for Port Royal? 3 years?
4 years.
4 years. You're in 1 year. You're in year one now.
No, year two.
Year
It's
two.
second, November will be 2 years.
Okay.
November
Wow.
will be 2 years.
Holy cow.
Time's moving fast. Sean.
Yeah, very fast.
Time's moving fast.
Too soon to talk about rerunning?
Yeah, I think, well, two things. I had always said I would never be more than a two-term mayor.
Okay.
Okay, that's something I have been pretty adamant about since the beginning.
Now, is that a personal belief for you as Joe Devito, or is that from a municipality standpoint that you feel like you've done what you can do in 2 years, saying you're elected the second term? Why?
Okay, so from a municipality standpoint, from an elected official, I believe in term limits. What is the number? That a community has to figure out. Personally, I think 3 for a local municipality sounds like the right number. In my mind, thinking about time-wise, all this, I think 3 is a good number. You know, you go back to all those years I sat on the planning commission, and I enjoyed every single meeting, every year, everything that we did, but I had been there so long, people started, Joe's Planning Commission. I had been president of SCA 11 for 3 terms. Joe's 811. It needs to be different. There are other people. And people need to know there's an opportunity to step up and be that person. So I wanted it very, very clear that, you know, if second term happens, that's it.
Yeah.
And somebody who's interested in doing this, you got 4 years to prep for it. You got 4 years to get ready for it. Because it's not something, honestly, that, you know, last 6 months you decide I'm going to do this.
Right, exactly right.
I mean, you have to kind of prep yourself and be ready and,
Right.
and get into that whole aspect. So that's the personal side for me.
Yeah.
I'm 60 years old. There comes a point that I also believe there's time for Joe and Joe's family. Hope, you know, I don't have any grandkids at this point. Who knows where they'll be.
Right.
It coincides a little bit with where I want to be personally in my life. My health always stays on top. You know, I think about that aspect. There comes a point where Dawn and I need to be just Dawn and I again. We were married for 6 years before we had our first child. We're very much ready to go back to Dawn and Joe.
Of course.
We're always going to have our kids.
Yeah.
We're always going to have our extended family, this, everything. But it's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of time management. I work full time and I'm the mayor, and it's just, I think 8 years of a commitment is found enough.
Yeah.
That's just where I am in my head.
Sorry. Yeah, that I agree with that, especially term limits for sure. And I just wish everybody as a whole in the government would understand that it's no different than driving.
Yeah.
You have your learner's permit at a certain age, but it should, at a certain age, even older in life, it should, because we regress from our mental, everything, our reactions change, everything changes. So you briefly talked about cycling. How, obviously you'd said it's better for your health. So what about cycling for you, besides the health benefits, do you enjoy?
So what I learned about cycling, I mean, cycling, like I said, for the health benefit, what I really, really found that I learned about cycling is the community, is the fellowship, the time you spend with other people in something totally different than everything else going on in people's lives.
Yeah.
No matter who we are, doctors, lawyers, plumbers, local politicians, real estate people, whatever it is, we come together, and we come together for different reasons why we're all on the bike. Some of it's a love of cycling, some of it's other reasons. And we spend hours together, and you spend that time together in a way that there's a lot of communication if you're not actively training for some
Right.
event that you have to go really, really hard. But it brings a community together in a lot of ways. It brings people together. And then there's the other side of that where if you just want to get away, and I've used cycling many times in my life where I've got to work through something, and you go out for 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour, 6 hour ride, whatever that is, and you're with your own thoughts and your own mind in a way that really allows you to process a lot of different things with zero interruptions other than what's obviously going on
Right.
around you, but with zero interruptions in that way. So I think there's a lot more to cycling than just training to be fast or healthy. It really brings people together and creates a group of friends and a network that just expand beyond. And then the community benefits of it and creating the awareness that people use roads and things for more than one reason other than the car is another aspect of
Right.
it. And I think that it has an amazing, lots of advantages. And if you choose to, you could ride with anybody. The fastest person, I've ridden with some amazingly fast riders who just choose to ride at my speed so
Right.
that we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
And if I run into somebody that I want to have a conversation with, I slow down to their speed. And
Right.
it's just, I think it's just a much bigger thing than just jumping on a bike and going for
Right.
a ride.
And this is a road bike that you ride?
I do. I'm a roadie, as
Right.
they like to classify people. In the way I'm not fearless. I understand the aspects of the road and the danger of the cars, but I also understand the benefits. You take your chances.
Yeah.
You could fall off a curb.
That's, I think in life in general, you take
Yes,
those
you
chances.
take
Every
your
time you get in a
chances.
car or you walk up the door.
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
We rely on other people, just like anything
Yes,
else
we
with the
rely on
cars.
others. So it's just one of those things. And yes, my bike is orange.
Oh, okay, yeah. What brand?
I ride a Trek.
Okay.
I ride a Trek. It
Yeah.
is a custom orange bike.
Nice.
High vis works
Yeah,
out.
it does. It does also help in that way.
Yeah.
It is
Obviously, I
high.
would assume your gear has an orange accent or it's orange in itself.
I wear lots of different gear, but I
Yeah.
do have a few orange shirts, a couple of shorts that have some
Yeah.
orange stripes on them.
Excellent.
I have one pair of orange shoes.
Okay.
Um,
So
So-
my experience with biking or cycling, my brother-in-law in LA rides. Road bike, mountain bike, he rides, and there's, I can't remember what it's called now, but in LA, downtown LA, usually 100, 150 people come down there. We meet at one spot. It's, and you ride 3 or 4 hours. There's a car up front with lights, and you just literally ride through downtown LA. So I'm
Wow.
seeing parts of LA that I've never seen before. And it's a group of people, and it's just one or two every now and then somebody will fall, but they're stopping traffic, letting you ride by. You're in Beverly Hills, riding through, or wherever that is, and that was my experience with cycling. Obviously, our community here isn't as bike friendly as up there because they're dedicated almost a third of the lane is for bike riders, and they're well aware. There's everywhere you go. It's obviously the weather plays a big part in the humidity and hardly the
Yeah,
rains
yeah,
and all that. But so I ended up buying an inexpensive road bike, less than $1,000. My wife has a mountain bike, so when it's seasonably, we ride Spanish Moss Trail
Yeah.
or our neighborhood on Ladies Island. We'll kind of ride through there. I do need to ride more from a heart standpoint, heart healthy standpoint. I need to, and for the exercise as well.
Yeah, no, it's good. And then there's the the bigger picture. There's the events, and I've done lots of events in all my years of riding now. And I started in 2003 was when I picked up a bike for the first time, trying to lose weight.
Yeah.
And I've done many paid events, and I realized about 10 years ago that if I'm going to pay to do an event, why not do something that's worthwhile?
Right.
So I do the events I try to do now are cancer. A couple weeks
Yep.
ago, I did a 24-hour
Wow.
fundraiser for cancer in Charlotte. I've done the Alzheimer's ride. So it's if I'm going to train and I'm going to exercise, why not put it to use?
Exactly right.
It's another way of let me leave something behind that's
Yeah.
a little better than when I came.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to spend all these hours and hours on a bike, I'll do
Might
it
as
for
well
a
do it
reason.
for that. Yeah, exactly.
Do it for the reason.
Make sure one
It's
thing.
great.
It's almost as if the one was exceeding its time, and then the display in the back wasn't doing it. So I wanted to make sure if I stopped it before, just to make sure that it. Does your wife ride?
No.
Really?
No.
So that's a Joe.
That-
that's your.
That's a
hobby.
Joe thing, and she's just a couple of times we've talked about it,
Yeah.
and she's like, nope,
She's content.
Nope.
She's content with
nope.
no limitations. Honey, I'm gonna go out and ride for a couple hours. She understands. Obviously, if there's other things going on, but
Absolutely. And I gave up golf before riding. I played golf when I started riding and realized how much I loved it, and
Yeah.
enjoyed it, and it was doing what I kind of originally went in for it for. Then there were these other ancillary benefits of
Yeah.
the friendships and the fellowship and all this. How many 6-hour or 5-hour, events can you have especially when you're raising kids? So
Right.
I gave up golf and chose to strictly have that one thing, which
Yeah.
is riding. And the one thing that's good about cycling is, you can get up sunrise, go for a ride. I can 4 hours into a ride, I'm home, and everybody else is just getting stirring.
right,
in
exactly
that
right.
way.
And you're up and invigorated.
As I've gotten older, I've had a little harder time going out in the
Yeah.
sunrise, but
Yeah.
if I'm at an event or something I've got to do, I
Yeah.
make it happen. But
yeah.
So it's a little bit more easy to schedule it into your life.
Right, for sure. Because you're not your hours are you're not limited in your hours of being.
And then, like you said, the Spanish Moss Trail, which was another board I was on,
Oh yeah.
has made it even easier
Yeah.
in that way. From door to I've got a way down the trail to the end and back. And
Yeah.
It's a 22-mile round trip, and I can just quickly run out and get that done in a short period of time, and then
Yeah.
be back home if nothing else happens.
Right, for sure.
And be safe.
My brother-in-law, when he came to town, we had rode it once. He borrowed, back when Nick was over at the coffee shop up there, he had borrowed his bike, and he and I had ridden it. It was actually around January after we had that snowstorm, and so there's a little bit of ice packs here and there, and it was just cool for him to be out here and experience that with us and ride the Spanish Moss Trail with snow on it. How often does that ever happen?
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Joe, I appreciate you taking the time today and sitting with us and discussing your life and what it's about, and the discotheque, meeting your wife and your life in the Low Country, and how influential and how important it is. You're a major part of the community, and I know we value our friendship, and we appreciate you coming in and taking this time to speak with us.
Yeah.
No, it was my pleasure, and it was enjoyable. You make it very relaxing and very easy. You actually make it hard to remember you're on camera, but I know everything I've said has been recorded. in that way.
Exactly right. Yeah, because you do forget that you're on camera. At least for me, I'm thinking logistics and making sure things are running and stuff like that. But
Right.
it does. I can just imagine those folks in a house that are being watched 24/7. You forget. I mean, you get accustomed to the lights and the sound and everything.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate all that you do here for me, for Port Royal as well.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful community, and we're glad to have what Sean and Tony do here in Port Royal.
Exactly. We wouldn't be any other place.
Thanks.
So.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks.